Hey everybody, today I'm going to be talking to you about strategies for Swahili speakers. Oops, sorry. This is a subject that's near and dear to my heart. Ever since I started working in my school in ESL in 2017, I've just been fascinated by my students who speak Swahili. They come from generally, most of them come from Tanzanian refugee camps. But what really fascinates me is how great their oral language is and being able to communicate with them. But a struggle that I've had since I began is their reading and writing, and it's kind of been at a standstill. So I really wanted to do some research in how I can improve reading and writing for Swahili speakers. And so I wanted to study their language and how it works in order for me to be able to teach them the proper way to use English in reading and writing. So the first thing it was that I learned was Swahili is actually a dialect of an African Bantu language, often obscure island. And since its location, many people have come in contact with Swahili and have used it. They've had traders from Asia and Arab and European countries. So a mixed, diverse of cultures and people have used Swahili. And it's pretty obvious when you look at their oral literacy tradition. And I think that's also why so many of our kids come from this country, come to this country, and are so high orally because everything they do is in an oral manner. One thing that I found that was really interesting about Swahili is they used to use an Arabic script. So they used to write in Swahili using Arabic. And it's pretty funny because my assistant in my classroom is from Morocco. So sometimes when the kids are speaking Swahili, she can pick up on words that they're saying because they're the same. So we always find that really interesting to compare some of the words they use to some of the Arabic words. But they did, eventually that faded out because of the sounds and how everything was different. But one thing mainly too was that Swahili only uses three vowel sounds, and that's a, e, which is very similar in Spanish. But and most of the words end in a vowel. But Arabic has those deeper, harsher sounds that just didn't translate into Swahili. But now Swahili is spoken more as a second language rather than a first. I know a lot of my students say that they speak Kibembe or some other type of tribal language, but Swahili is the universal language that they all use. So one thing to look at for understanding Swahili speakers when they enter into your school is their prior schooling. A lot of students come from no prior schooling at all, and then the majority are coming to us from camps. Most of my students come from Tanzanian refugee camps. We do have some that are from other places, but the majority come from Tanzania. So I looked up an article by UNICEF, and they were talking about just how the schools work in Tanzanian refugee camps. Places where they do have school, some of them are extremely better than others. Some are in more permanent structures, and some are still, outside with a chalkboard sort of thing. But it is getting better because more families are staying in camps longer now, but the learning conditions vary depending on what part of Tanzania you're in. And students are taught mathematics, French, history, geography, civics, music, gymnastics, science while they're in camps, and their language of instruction is either in Swahili and English or French. So they are learning English, and I think that is why a lot of them come knowing so much and willing to try the language. So what is it important for teachers to know? Students can be unable to concentrate in school due to ongoing issues such as losing family members, violence, and rape. It's important that we think about the trauma these students have been through when they come into our classrooms. They may have been able to see things that we can't even imagine young kids seeing. So we have to take that into account, how trauma plays a role on the effects of the brain. And then also with low performance, low attendance, and a 1-to-5 textbook ratio in camps, these students are coming to the United States without being literate in their first language. And I think that is what has been so difficult is we have kids coming who are unable, they don't have those foundational reading skills. So we have to not only, and they're older, so we have to go back and teach them the foundational reading skills even when they're in fifth grade. One thing that really helps is oral language. And oral language assessment provides information concerning strengths and weaknesses in what a student is able to listen and understand in complex structures of English. So a lot of our students, if you ask them to do repeated sentences, they leave out a lot of little words, prepositions, and all that, those kinds of things. So if they're not able to do that, they're not going to be able to transfer that into their writing. So it does help to perform an oral language assessment to tell you what level that they're at. So you are able to create an instructional sequence to teach them in order. So you'd start with simple sentences and continue, go higher and higher and adding more detail. For example, you could say, the doctor is working would be a simple sentence to use first. And then once the students start mastering that sentence, you can start adding a prepositional phrase. The doctor is working at the hospital. And as you add more detail, the students will be able to improve in their listening, speaking, reading, and writing. The next thing that is a great strategy is guided reading. And if you don't do guided reading now, you really need to look into Jan Richardson's guided reading because she is the greatest guided reading person that I know. Guided reading is important because it establishes fundamental skills necessary for proficient reading. It also it just is a great way for students who struggle, who have no clue where to even start, how to get them ready to read. It really teaches them those strategies. If you want, I actually have this book, so I can send you lesson plans. But for those students that come from they don't know any alphabet, or maybe they're at a level A or a level B, it goes through and it helps build background knowledge and sight word knowledge and comprehension strategies and discussion strategies and writing. And it provides the kids with the opportunity to become really good readers. In conclusion, many students are coming to us from these camps having experienced trauma and gaps in their education. So as teachers, we need to provide a safe and caring environment that promotes early literacy in oral language to allow these students to become successful. So if you guys would like any of those assessments, you can email me because I would be glad to give them to you. Here are some of the references I used. But if we can use oral language and guided reading in our instruction, we will move these kids along fast. So I hope you learned some things from this presentation. I don't know if you have as many Swahili speakers in your classroom as me, but I enjoy having them and their energy and their positivity and their creativeness, and I can't wait as they grow as an English speaker.